Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's session. And I hope everybody is nicely joined in by now. Please let us know if there are any issues with accessing any of this today. First of all, I would like to introduce today's session and go through some general housekeeping and information before giving the floor to our guest speaker. First of all, thank you for joining this Regional Studies Association Professional Development webinar series. As you are aware, this is part of the ongoing series for professional development in the Regional Studies Association, the Global Interdisciplinary Network for Urban and Regional Research, Development, Study and Policy. And it is also part of RSA's mission to support its members with the latest research, funding schemes, networking, publishing opportunities, and spaces to grow general research and careers. And this is one of these sessions aimed at developing methodological innovations in the study of places. So a little bit of housekeeping. Today, this webinar is, as ever, being recorded, and it will be later made available on the main RSA lounge that you can access with your credentials. As this is ongoing and it will be followed by Q&A, any questions, comments for us or the guest speaker, please pop them in the Q&A box and we will collate later. And if you wish to speak about this event more publicly, there is a hashtag on X, formerly known as Twitter, RSA webinar to talk about this event. So today I would like to introduce this research on engaged scholarship. It's part of the research undertaken at the Institute of Place Management at Manchester Metropolitan University. I am your chair, Dr. Jenny Kanellopoulou, Senior Lecturer in Spatial and Cultural Legal Studies at Manchester Law School and Fellow at the Institute of Place Management. And I will be introducing Dr. Nikos Ntounis, who is Senior Lecturer in Marketing at Manchester Metropolitan University and Senior Fellow of the Institute of Place Management. His research focuses on the management of places with emphasis on retailing and footfall and on alternative approaches to place branding, placemaking, governance, and leadership in the urban environment. He's also the managing editor of the Journal of Place Management and Development. And today's session will focus on some case studies delivered by the Institute of Place Management and primarily the High Street Task Force, but always in the context of doing engaged scholarship and delivering impactful results together with places. And I do hope that you will find it very useful and relevant. As ever, please don't forget comments and questions in the Q&A box so I can deliver to our speaker later. And without any further ado, please, Nikos, if you would like to share your screen and start today's session.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Jenny, for the introduction. I hope you can all see the screen. And as Jenny said, this session is based on how we deliver engaged scholarship at the Institute of Place Management for the last 10 years, at least, and it will mainly focus on the High Street Task Force and some of the previous research that underpinned the development of the High Street Task Force. And but yeah, in case you don't know what the Institute about the Institute, we are a professional network that it's externally focused, and it's run by the Manchester Metropolitan University. We deliver courses like master's courses in place management as well. And we edit a journal. I edit the journal of the IPM, which is the Journal of Place Management and Development, which focuses on urban studies and geography, mainly for the study of places. And of course, our funding work. So yeah, the title of this presentation is Researching Places from the Ground Up, the Engaged Scholarship Approach. And even though I'm making the presentation, this is work that the IPM team has been engaged, and so a shout out to all of the IPM team who is actually working in these projects. So what do we define by engaged scholarship, first of all? And this term that stems mainly from the scholarship of engagement, meaning that we're trying to understand what is the climate in which the academic and the civic cultures can communicate continuously more creatively with each other. So it's mainly connecting the rich resources of the university to the most pressing social, civic, and ethical problems. We define Gates scholarship as a participatory, reflexive, collaborative research approach that is directed towards accomplishing societal advancements while maintaining research quality. So basically augmenting the engaged scholarship approach from Andrew van der Ven's seminal book in order to produce knowledge that is more insightful than when scholars or practitioners work on problems alone. So the focus here is on studying what we call the wicked problems, and we felt that this approach is very suitable for studying places, especially in the environment that these are operating, like climate crisis or the cost of living crisis. Of course, it was very relevant during the COVID pandemic, and you'll see in the case how that materialized, but also in the political and sociocultural divisions of our world. It's an approach that required ample resources, but also slow and experimental scholarship. So the cases that I'll show you are showing that. So what we say with IPM and engaged scholarship, so IPM, since founding from 2008, Almanza Metropolitan University has built a national and international reputation for high quality, impactful research. You can see some of our projects there and how these have developed over the years. And we want that, and we define and we're trying to define the prominent field of place leadership and management. So our research is mainly aims to understand the complexity of socioeconomic factors that impact places, and we're trying to create practical ways to manage the challenges that are faced by individual towns and cities. Our main focus here, we are mainly focusing on the context of the high street. So, and that's where most of our research has like impact. And when we talk about transforming high streets, we're thinking about what we're trying to change them to. So when we visit towns, we ask people what a good place looks like, and we all like to imagine that towns and city centers could be like busy, vibrant, and very close to the heart of our communities with shops and services and a good quality public realm. But the reality, and this is where our research comes from, is that usually places, especially in the UK, look like this. So, and we feel that places have in town centers, or what we call the UK high streets, have lost their purpose. So they lack both private and public investment, and they also underserve the local communities. So, and that is all underpinned by mainly broader changes, mainly changes in retail, which has been our primary focus when we started doing engaged scholarship. We're trying to understand how retail is actually fading from the town centers and what can actually replace retail. So we embarked on actually, developing a framework that was based on our High Streets UK 2020 project back in 2014, when I was a research assistant for the Institute. And what we did then was trying to understand how many potential interventions can influence vitality and viability in our town centers and high streets. So for that, we did the classic academic thing, like going to the literature and identifying these factors. But what we also did was actually asking people in communities that worked on our projects of what do they feel that that can influence vitality, which is like the busyness of the town center, and viability, which is the long-term the long-term resilience of a place, if you prefer. So it was interesting to know that that we found like more than 200 and factors. In fact, we found like 237 factors that affect vitality and viability. But what we also but we also need to identify how to prioritize that. And with the help of our communities, we started actually working on how much each factor that we identified influences vitality and viability, but also how much control people can have over these factors. So based on our engaged scholarship approach, we came up with this quadrant. And the first part of the quadrant is factors that they don't influence vitality and viability that much. And also you don't have control over them, so you can sort of forget about them. We have factors that pretty much that influence vitality and viability, like where a town center is based, if it's in the north of England, for example, or in the south of England, that makes a massive difference. But also these are factors that are not very controllable. So we said like we have to live with these factors. There are also factors that are very controllable and they can change high streets, but maybe they're not really worth it as much at that point. So we thought that we said that this is not worth it. And then we focused most of our priorities in the get on with it, which are factors that are influencing vitality and viability, and also local people can control them. So based on this, we developed a top 25 priorities framework, which you can, I'm not going to go to much detail here, but these are the key priorities for creating better town and city centers. And we discovered that some of those were already part of the town, but there were many inherent challenges that were in these priorities that we needed to address more. And during our work, we further refined this 25 priorities framework to 5 simple questions, whereby places can actually focus their resources. So what affects the look and feel of the high street? How does the high street function in terms of activity hours? What the high street has to offer, not only in terms of retail offer, but also in terms of attractiveness and markets and recreational space. How does the high street need to change in terms of barriers to entry? And that relates also to maybe some more some other factors in the macro environment. And how is the high street managed, which is part of the vision and strategy of the place. From this framework, while working with many locations, we developed a program that's called the Vital and Viable Neighborhoods Program, which has a place audit based on the 25 priorities ingrained, and from that, and these 25 priorities are an integral part of this program. This program has traveled quite a lot, as you can see from this slide, and it has traveled in many places. And most importantly, in 2018, we involved as part of this program Sir John Timson and his expert panel and senior civil servant to actually inform policy directions on the future of the high streets, which you can read more in our High Street 2030 report, which I can share the link for it later on. So all this work that was done with an engaged scholarship ethos has led to us actually getting a national program, the High Street Task Force, which I will talk more about now, but was also underpinned with that engaged scholarship in mind. And for those of you who are not familiar with the High Street Task Force, the High Street Task Force was a 9.2 million contract with the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, aiming to revitalize high streets across England. We worked in partnership with 12 project partners for that and coordinated 21 sector leaders and 150 high streets to improve their high streets. And we worked with 150 locations to improve their high streets. And it ran from July 2019 until September of this year. And you can see here the high-level plan of the task force from when it was planned and launched. You can see phase 2, where the scaling up of the broader offer was in fact interrupted by COVID, where we actually had to put back our thinking hats and our engaged scholarship hats in order to actually rethink how we'll actually deliver these services to people who didn't have access on the high streets for at least a year during lockdown, leading towards the delivery of the products and services, and also the delivery and the legacy and the continued evaluation of the task force, which was part of the program. This is some of our partners. So the Institute of Place Management led the project, but you can see our project partners, co-created programs and products and services that rolled out across English high streets. We had service and data providers. We had professional bodies that actually work with us, but also we engaged with young people from the teenage market, and also the civic voice was an important voice for local people as well. But also work with sector leaders, which we had regular meetings with them to share latest data and insights into high streets. And we also met monthly during the pandemic with monthly data packs that we created with sector leaders in order to inform the COVID-19 direction for the high streets. We worked with a suite of 150 task force experts. They were all practitioners with expertise in high street place management, and they were tasked with going directly into high streets across England to provide their expert support and advice to local authorities and communities. And the task force, it had 4 broad aims: to boost local authority capacity and capability to transform their high streets, to build sustainable placemaking skills through training and upskilling of the place management sector, to coordinate a national approach on how we think about our high streets and what are the new directions for them, and also to share information and data to encourage more evidence-informed decisions about improving high streets. And we tried to roll up this program with we have many frameworks that aren't in this program, but of particular focus is what we call the 4 R's of renewal program, which was a key part of the delivery, and all our experts were trained on this, and they were actually trained to actually deliver this theory, this theory in their reports in a simple language that could actually be comprehended by multiple people that were in these meetings. So very briefly, repositioning is about knowing what your town is, using relevant data and information to develop a vision that achieves change. Reinventing relates more to multiple activation and animation attempts to diversify the attractiveness of the town. Rebranding is to establish an identity and sense of place that can engender pride in place. And restructuring is about putting the capacity, leadership, and partnerships to deliver change. And over the 5 years of the task force, as I said, we visited over 150 places, our experts and us, including 10 places for the High Streets Accelerators program, which was also a direct outcome of our involvement in this High Street Task Force project in order to boost capacity and place leadership in local communities. We delivered 38 leadership masterclasses. There was 280 days of expert support. We also collated online resources from open access, academic articles, reports, and transformed it into useful summaries for place managers, and in order to access them. And we ran almost 90 workshops on vision and placemaking. And you can see like the hours of local analysis and website views that we had. The website, by the way, right now is actually on the National Archives. I can share a link of that if you are interested in seeing more. And I hope I've not overrun a lot, but just a few reflections about our engaged scholarship approach. And so we found out over these years that a pathway to research in place this way is to put place at the heart of policy decision making and action, and also to focus on functioning geographies that have meaning. So we adopt a place first approach, a place based and place first approach that puts place first and talks about actual places in all our research. We're trying to draw on the assets in communities and addressing the community's challenges. And we're also trying to join up policy and funding initiatives at the local level. We're trying to encourage people to do that with our work, to make them work for their own place. But ultimately, what we were doing in this project is to actually try to build leadership, management, and coordination capacity for local places and their high streets. And while doing this work as academics, we realized also that this work is very rewarding, but it's also quite challenging in terms of how we experience engaged scholarship on the ground. So we're experiencing varying degrees of success in terms of capacity and partnership working that sometimes can limit the ability to work with places that don't have effective partnership structures and place leadership. This lack of capacity can sometimes limit the ability to have a to make real world impact. So we don't have, we have like good cases where we have like great impact, but this actually has varied greatly. And last, because we have to adapt our methods in understandable and actionable papers, it has proven quite challenging for us because we do this work first rather than actually theorize about it, to adapt our methods in the academic publication environment. So I think if you want to read more about how we do engaged scholarship, we have published recently a commentary and a paper about engaged scholarship and how we use it. And I think that's it for me. If you want to learn more about the Institute, please scan the QR code and find more information. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Nikos. Yes, indeed, I have collected some of the questions here in the chat and in the Q&A particular box. So the first question, as the 237 factors were being presented, was obviously, if you could repeat when people can read more about the factors influencing high street vitality, and also some of the gravitational pull. Is there an assessment of how these factors work between them, if some are more influential than others? So yes, where can we signpost people for reading more about the 237 factors influencing vitality first?
Yes, so the factors research has been published in the Journal of Place Management and Development. There is a special issue published in 2017, which I can share the link for. I mean, I can't find it right now, but I can share the link later. But yeah, all this research, the four R's of renewal and the factors and the methodology behind it, and also the engaged scholarship methodology behind it, are in this special issue. So I can signpost people there. What was the second part of this question? Sorry.
Well, a little bit. Well, we can. We want to know more about the relationship between those factors. Is that something that is addressed in the scholarship? How these factors interact, so people can read from it there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you have all these factors combined together, we found out that some of them are actually matching, with each other. So using some statistical techniques at that point, but also asking people, if they think that, this factor is quite similar to the other factor, we managed to create that sort of priority. So what we call the 25 priorities stem from further analyzing these factors. And there is a lot of grouping going on, as you can imagine there. And the 25 priorities is the sort of the tool that we use when we do the audits, for example. But still, we understand that it's also like 25 is also a lot. That's why we condense them into 5 simple questions.
That's very nice to know that there is condensation there. It's very it makes the research more relatable. The next set of questions that I will group together relates to the 4 R's. So we have a question here: did the inclusion of community groups and organizations come up in the 4 R's to boost high streets? And related to that, then we have a more practical question on how did the research team reach out to public authorities to begin with? So if we can share a bit of intel there.
Yeah, so the inclusion of community groups and organization, it comes up there. It comes up in the restructuring R, if you prefer. So mainly it comes up to the capacity of a place to involve like multiple groups of people that work together for the betterment of place. When we saw fragmentation, and that is the most challenging part in places. When we see the fragmentation in sort of government approaches, in the governmental, at the governmental level, at the local government level, is where community groups and organizations are not being advised. So this was a part that came like directly from the lack actually of involving these groups, and the lack of actually having like capacity to collaborate with these groups. So this is a particular I wouldn't say prescription, but something that we directly identify when we go to deliver workshops, or we go to talk with the local government at that point, and that's part of and we include them in these R's. But obviously, all these R's are related. Just one, sometimes it's more prominent than the other. One challenge is more prominent than all the others, so we focus mostly on that. And second one?
I think you kind of answered the question of how local groups and partnerships approached. How did you reach out to public authorities? I think that was, answered there, but you can elaborate more about today's. But I want to jump into the next critical question, and also if you can add a comment to that, about place branding, which has been critiqued as reductive of the place they seek to boost, as more indicative of developers, not local citizens. How did you ensure authenticity? So I think that these questions match together, how well local people consulted with respect to place branding. So if we could contextualize it to group the questions.
So I guess when we tell place branding, we don't use the term rebranding here in the sort of like logos and slogans and consultant focus of place branding, but more about people involving people to brand their places. So it's more of a participatory approach to branding, and basically telling out the stories of local people and how they relate to their high street, for example. So it's focusing on local people and shouting out what you can be proud about your place, and in a broader sense so that's how we ensure authenticity. Really, we say that this has to come from the bottom up, so branding comes from local people in this respect.
Thank you, Nikos. And moving to more, a few years back, there's a question on how much lasting impact has COVID had on high streets, and how have things now returned to 2019 trends? Because you did mention that you had to go back to the drawing board when COVID hit. So if you can take a retrospective there, but also a future-looking approach. Did we learn something from COVID that we could extrapolate to similar scenarios in the future?
No, that's a massive question, I think, right? I'll try to, I know the numbers in terms of 2019 trends, so I can answer that part, because for the High Street Task Force, we have collected data for footfall at least, and some other commercial data that show that there is some sort of recovery in places. We categorize this recovery differently though. So places that like district centers in the UK have bounced back faster because of other factors as well, like working from home. This is a massive. This was a massive shift, for example, that people actually started being closer to their communities. So these places served these communities better when people were working from home, for example. So the trends, they're so slowly there. Maybe in terms of footfall, I would say maybe it's still like 10% down. But obviously, with the dynamic environment of the high street, it's really tough to answer if things will ever return to 2019 trends. I'm actually quite interested to see what the new, rules on hospitality, for example, will do for the high street. And these are, obviously, this is a wait and see thing. So in terms of if we learned anything, yeah, I mean, we learned that people can actually be effective in like short-term spans, and we had a crisis and recovery framework for COVID that actually was implemented by many places at that point, and it actually helped businesses at that point dramatically from the feedback that we have from the task force to actually get back on track.
I know we are overrunning a little bit, but let's have a little bit of time to summarize the last remaining questions, because there's, I think, 2 or 3 left. So there's a question about real life changes achieved through this work. Any best practice examples that have emerged? Any challenges? Okay, I know this is getting a bit broad. What were the methods of engagement, focus groups, interviews? I think most of these can be addressed in the special issue that you did mention. So I want to focus particularly on real life changes. This would be the major takeaway here.
Yeah, and that's quite important. And one of the papers that I shared on the slide screen, the one that we did recently with Chloe Stedman and Steve Millington, talks about 3 main points, really. And the real life change is that, we have to go beyond the ivory tower as academics. And what we do, for example, to approach people is like we go on their home turf, to use a football term. In order to do this research, we go and do, we go and talk with them like very, very closely. We're sort of embracing like a public character persona of an academic, because of course academics come with a positionality already. So we're trying to alleviate that positionality, and that is the main real life changes that we're trying to compromise with a lot of publishing work or other requirements in order to facilitate places in this respect. And best practice examples, yes, there are a lot there on the website. You can go and actually, see testimonials also and case studies. And the High Street Task Force website on the National Archives, unfortunately, right now has a lot of case studies where places have actually created new boards, new town boards, or they develop new initiatives to boost activity, and they quote these models, these frameworks, and the first point of contact that we made with them as the starting point to do that. So yeah.
This is, I think that this has been the main topic of the main focus of the questions that have been coming up in the Q&A. How do we ensure that the correct participants are being approached? How do we ensure that it's actually the local people, the actual people that are involved in the process? And I think this is what other participants in this webinar wish to take away from this, the most authentic, if we are to use this word, way of approaching place-based research. And I think that you did address it. So basically signposting people back to the literature and the theoretical frameworks would be the way for them to take away what the key aspects for their own research. And we have another plea here. Yes, to go back to the last slide. of your even if you pop it in the Q&A or on your screen, the last two papers that you shared the titles of on your
Yes,
last slide. Yes, can you please repeat it because people are asking about them? I know
yes.
Nikos
So
is trying to find it. So
yes,
we can with this we could conclude if we just sign the
yeah.
posters to the latest
So
literature.
researching with places on using engaged scholarship in marketing is a paper by Chloe Steadman and Steve Millington, published in the I think it's a qualitative marketing journal. Let me see. Qualitative Market Research. That's the title of the journal. And the latest one, the reflections from the business school's margins on doing engaged scholarship, is a commentary on a paper on engaged dialogue that it's open access on dialogues in urban research. So
yeah,
I can share all these links
yes, please.
if needed as well, in the follow-up email of this webinar.
Of course. In any case, this will be recorded so people can listen back to the webinar and catch up with any details. So I'm afraid we will have to conclude now because we did overrun a little bit. But thank you so much, Nikos, for this session. And thank you very much, everyone, for participating and for your very relevant and interesting questions. As I did say, everything will be recorded and back on the RSA Lounge that you can refer to. And thank you very much, Alex and Nikki, for organizing this. Obviously, further sessions will be announced soon on the RSA website, so keep an eye out for relevant emails and announcements. Also, you know that you can refer back to the website for more information on the RSA, such as membership, workshops, publications, and career development opportunities. Relevant to both to various career stages and geography of participants. So we look forward to seeing everyone in a future session. So thank you very much for this. We'll have to close the meeting now. Please follow on with emails if you need to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nikos. Thank you, everyone.